Welcome back to New Realities. This is another adventure in the multidimensional mind, and I'm very happy to be hosting this event. And this is called Beyond the Divine Feminine and Masculine, and it's very exciting to see what lies beyond all that because we're achieving that consciousness, but where are we going as a community, as individuals, as different sexes here in this collective humanity? So this talk is really the sort of creation of Marianna Lee. So I'll just let her. I'm Alan Steinfeld for New Realities, and here's Marianna Lee. And producing this is also Michael Ney. So go ahead, Marianna. Unmute.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, good day to everyone. I'm so happy to have such a wonderful and extraordinary community here with us today. And it is truly of utmost essence and vital timing that we host this panel today of the Divine Feminine and Divine Masculine. And we have with us absolutely extraordinary panelists, Celestine Starr, who's an ultra-terrestrial and heavenly emissary and a contactee for over 45 years of her life, offering galactic wisdom and knowledge to the world as she teaches the world and helps to expand the evolutionary process at this time. We have with us Melissa Sophia Joy, Dr. Melissa Sophia Joy, who's the founder of the Somatic Awakening process and the founder of the Sophia Healing Academy. She's a doctor and a channel, a naturopathic doctor and a channel of the divine. We have with us Igor Galibov. Igor provides guidance towards inspirational living with his abilities and experience in self-transcendence, and he guides people to their inner selves. We also have with us Rosalind Beth Horowitz joining us live from Israel. We have Simon Deacon, who's a Vortex, very famous, well-known Vortex healer in New York City, joining us there directly from Manhattan. And we have the utmost pleasure of having Suyara Erikkson, who's the author of God and the Evolution of Orgasm. So that should be an extremely interesting and timely panel for today. So thank you, Alan.
Well, thank you. So now that you've introduced everyone, why don't we just jump into the theme of the panel, and you have a bunch of questions and we'll do a sort of roundtable. And of course, I'll add some comments of my own, but I also see what the chat is focusing on online. So thank you, everyone. Please ask your questions there too. So go ahead, Marianna. Oh, and we also have Davy, Moshka Davy. Did you introduce her?
Well, Samavesha Moksha Gayatri Devi will actually do an expanded explanation of the equality between both the divine feminine and divine masculine that is being now kind of pushed forward on the planet, but she will do that at the end. So we're very happy to have her with us. The first most important question of the panel that we will throw in now is, what does beyond the divine feminine and masculine mean to you? So Celestine Starr, would you take that away with us, please? Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor to be here, Marianna, and for all of the panelists. I'm just so totally grateful. But let's get started. You know, for me, I like to start at the beginning of the history of Earth, which would be when we had the interstellar colonies and the beings that were here to actually formulate the Earth. So we have a tone, we have a vibration, and that vibration brought forth the emanation of a humanoid that was androgynous. So that would be in a divinity. Some of us call them the Watchers, some of them are the councils. And really, there wasn't too many that came into the greening area. And I'm speaking from a direct contact with the High Spiritual Council. I'm working with the Galactic Star Federation. So they tell us the history, and it's written in my book, The Galactic Earth Council, the reintegration of Starkin and Earthkin. And you'll find there that they speak about the first ones that came into the greening area. There was a pair of 6 female and 6 males. And so when I look at that, and we're splitting from the divinity, from androgynous, we're carrying the universal principles of the feminine, kind of an inward spiraling intuition, love, nurturing, the helping of building, birthing and building civilization, building colonies, bringing forth children, and the loving nurturing that it takes to raise children and be in a family situation. And then we have the masculine, which is kind of the active principle of doing, protecting, in those days, building, the engineering, the intelligence of knowing how to bring something together, to multiply. And so we take that forward into the times before the flood. And then when we look at after the flood, it was more the feminine. So the feminine had that need to bring babies back onto the planet. And so it gave us a position of the goddess, and we had a strong personality, persona in the world, and building civilization again, and the male there protecting and bringing, doing their part as well as bringing it together. I want to say that the feminine, we're designed to have children. We have the Amrita that drops down into the womb. And that Amrita, that super consciousness, enables our bodies, DNA, to build another living being within us. And we love the masculine because the masculine is the giver. It's all the giver, the bringing forth. And so we take it within us. As the masculine is the opposite, going in the outward direction, the giver, but still always has been there, the two working together. So we go through history after the floods, in which the feminine, the matriarchal, soon it becomes the patriarchal. So we've had 3,500 years of the patriarchal, basically, and we're coming to the end of that. So we come to the place of what is beyond. And I think the word is acquiesce. Acquiesce is to be in balance. And we've seen, as we're coming to the end of the patriarchal, that the feminine is rising again. Her voice is opening, our voices, our intuition, we're speaking, and we're recognizing, both male and female are recognizing that we have the genders within us. So it opens the way to many aspects of gender, male, male, female, female. And so as we come into balance, the acquiesce, we start a new era, a new state of being, coming back into our divinity. So I see the divinity within us now holding the absolute knowledge of what is feminine within us and what is masculine. And so I see the blessings of watching into the world, the masculine, strong, determined, active. And that is within us. We have the alpha female, such as myself, right? My masculine is very strong and wants to do. And we have the feminine, the nesting, the nurturing. So that's what I would say. Put that on the platform. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Beautiful, Celestine. Yes, thank you. Okay, who else, Marianna? Do you want to?
So Melissa, Sophia, Joy, I think she has to add about that in regards to bringing forward what is beyond at this time. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you so much, Marianna. And again, I just want to echo what Celestine said. I'm so honored to be here. And I want to take what Celestine said in the sense of she went from past to present. And what I would like to do is go from macro to micro and turn it inside out. So through my experiences, awakening experiences with the divine, I want to share with you what I have experienced, what has been shared with me, both through my experience as well as from the higher dimensional guides that I work with. So in the big picture of it all is one. When we expand out bigger and bigger and bigger into the cosmic understanding of the universe, there is a high vibrational field that is beyond the masculine and the feminine. And as that field moves down into more and more dense realities, as it moves toward our reality, our 3D reality, it moves into a dualistic field. So it automatically moves into what we could call the divine masculine and the divine feminine field. Both are absolutely filled with love that is never ending, and that love is at the core of all of creation. So with that, we have the divine masculine principle, which Celestine said, I'm just going to echo, is this energetic, it's this movement, it's this externalization, right? And then we have this divine feminine energy, which is very nurturing and very loving. They both have sides of each other inside of them. So we have aspects of the divine feminine, which are like the Shekinah and Kali, which is very fiery. And we also have aspects of the softer aspects of the divine masculine. And say, for instance, in some of Jesus's acts, whenever he was connected with the divine masculine, this really nurturing, loving way. However, when we put on the filters of what's been happening over the last few thousand years with patriarchy, when the divine masculine has moved down through those filters, what has happened is that we were forced as a people through the fear of survival, because of all of the different violence that has happened, the multiple levels of violence that has occurred, to actually move from seeing divine inside of us to moving outward, to putting awareness, worship outward, in the sense of I'm not worthy, and I must now worship you outside, God, priest, king, whatever that is. So it's this outward movement of worship. When we put this on with the patriarchal filters with the divine feminine, what happens is that this energy of the internalization, which the divine feminine absolutely stands for, this internalization of understanding divine inside of us, this embodiment principle, which is the essence of what I would call divine feminine awakening, right? We had to move away from that at threat of death in many cases, and how that was learned through generation after generation. And now what's happening is that these filters are shifting. They're shifting on many, many different levels. And people are coming back to, oh, there's something inside of me. I'm divine. What does my spirituality actually look like as compared to the organized religions, which has kind of held it in a way where we were constantly having to look beyond ourselves and look at the essence of how the Western civilization perspective of the core wound of unworthiness was manifested in that. So in essence, what's happening now, I'll just be really brief here. What's happening now is that as we are moving deeper and deeper inside of ourselves, we are coming into that balance of the masculine and the feminine inside, what they call in mystical Christianity, Heros Gamos, the sacred union. And that is the embodiment of beyond divine feminine and divine masculine. So
beautiful. Thank you. Should we go to you want
Soraya?
Oh,
Soraya?
yeah.
Well, let me just introduce Soraya a little more formally, because we both studied in India together with some great masters, and I saw Soraya just recently in LA, and she was bringing through the divine energy, and to see that embodied, it's a healing force. It's a healing force. I'll say more about that, but Soraya, I'm so happy you could join us. So what do you have to say about this?
Always happy to do anything with you, Ellen.
Okay.
So yeah, for me, it is the unity consciousness, and it's beyond the ego. And that's a classic definition for this, what is beyond. It is that unity consciousness. And I've merged with that I had a Kundalini awakening. So for me, I have merged into that light that is beyond ego identity, and it is bliss. And it's basically what the scriptures say it is. It's this fiery bliss of, for me, when I've gone into this light, there is no masculine, there is no feminine. And it is the ego that pulls me back to this reality, and the journey about integrating this understanding of what is beyond, and then the masculine and feminine. It is about becoming a multidimensional being. And that's the evolution of humanity, is we're here to learn how to embody all our aspects, and the micro and the macro. And so for me, that's been the journey. And what's interesting about awakening, it is the force. This I call it conscious life force energy. And I do want to add to that now, because I was thinking about it, and it's the conscious life force, for me, bliss energy. That's my direct experience. And we all come from, to this understanding from different aspects and different traditions. And that's why these panels are so important to listen to, because it will happen for us in different ways, and the understanding will develop in different ways for us. So that's been my journey, was through a classic Kundalini awakening. What was interesting is that for me, as so many people who have this awakening, is that once you have it, you definitely feel that it is the evolutionary force of man, as Gopi Krishna has said, and so many other people have said. So I've heard different people talk about Kundalini awakening and unity consciousness. I was actually just listening to someone very well known. I won't mention who it is, but they were saying that this kind of mystical understanding of complete merging into that egoless, light is not for everybody, and that's more the mystical path that can also be dangerous. I've heard some people say that. And I want to disagree with that. I think that might have been in the past, that maybe, we're progressing as a whole as well as individuals. So perhaps that was part of the old paradigm. And I think the new paradigm is that these mystical experiences and this communion with the egoless state that is so healing, because once you have that point of reference, that is when life becomes naturally sacred for you. That's when Tantra evolves naturally. Once you have that communion and understanding of that deep love, it's kind of like they say, it takes one to know one. Then you know it in everything. You know it in the trees, you know it in your friends, you know it in everything. And that's when life becomes that sacred evolution. And that is what will bring heaven on earth. So my whole journey from that unity consciousness in the macro has been that it is time, I feel, that more and more people, not just the saints that go away from the world, and because it's, it can be tough to navigate sometimes, this understanding of the mystical. The mystical is being a multidimensional being, and that can be discombobulating because you're always going into the unknown. But I disagree with this person. I think it's a time where we will be able to incorporate a new level of wholeness to who we are, and that includes these mystical states that perhaps were once only, the sadhus that live in the caves and go away from the world could absorb and navigate. But I think it's a time where more and more this is the next stage of our evolution as a whole and as individuals. So that is, I can go on and on about the bliss.
We'll come back to you, but I totally agree with you. We're in a new paradigm, a new level of awakening, and what was maybe set for just a few people before is now available to all of us, because we're emerging as divine beings, the awareness of our divinity. Did you want to call on Igor, and then I'll say something after that?
Absolutely. Okay. I think that it's
Yeah.
important to have the masculine perspective. I think that's
Yeah.
really vital. Definitely. So Igor, please do give us a overview of what the beyond means to you.
Well, hello, beautiful goddesses and gods. It's an honor to be here and to share my perspective on this. I went through my own awakening in 2004, and it was a rapid awakening to where I saw things more from the energetic perspectives. We obviously create a personality, and each one of us have a template of beliefs where we separate and segregate things. And this is why we're in this 3D reality where we have a masculine and feminine. If we go above that, in reality, we are both. And we are now here at this point where we're embodying both of them. So we're starting to understand that I am as much as a female, as much as I am a male, and not in a physical aspect, but in an aspect of expression. And this aspect of expression is two energy fields that are constantly rotating. So one rotates is representing the female and the other one representing the male. And when those two energy fields come together, we start to embody both the creative side and the active side. So the female is the creative side, and the male is the active side that takes the action in this physical reality. And even if we take a look at our body, we have a negative charge, positive charge, same thing with our body. We have two of everything, right? But we have one heart. And bringing all those energies in and understanding who you truly are is starting that rotational spin within our heart space that embodies us. And as that happens, we start to understand, oh, I am that gentleness, I am that masculine, and I could be the Shiva and the Shakti according to the times that is needed. So we start to play with these two energies, and we become this aroused energy within our minds that we start to say, okay, I am whole now. I'm coming to a wholeness. And in this coming up times, or that we are existing now, we're coming together where we started to honor the female. We're starting to honor the male. So the emotional plays that are taking place right now, where a lot of separation is happening, is because we're coming together with other beings to understand as relationships, who am I within? What is that male represents within me? What is that female represents within me? What is that my mother played in a role in my life, or my father played a role in my life? And each one of them kind of contribute to your development to bring you into this wholeness of your heart. And that heart flame, when it comes together, this masculine and feminine energy, you start to understand, okay, now I'm vibrating at a soul level. Now my perception is changing, and my blueprint of belief is changing, because what I was taught from childhood, that a man has to be tough no matter what, it doesn't have to be this way. We can move worlds with gentleness, and we can create realities with a gentle masculine. And these two energies are starting to understand that I have as much masculine within my feminine, and I have as much as feminine within my masculine. And the children that are coming through, they are already kind of embodying this, and they're stepping into this reality where they're saying, oh, wait a minute, I don't have to go through chaos in order to change. So the divine feminine says, we can do it gently, just be patient and loving. And we all coming into this stage right now where both of our hemispheres of our brains are becoming activated. Our sexual organs are becoming activated. So from this point, we're starting to look at sex already as a love-making tool, and it starts to change our nuclear system within. So as those electrons and all the biomagnetic fields change, our cells are changing, and it takes us to a completely different perception of reality. And from that point, we have a balance, and we are just gentle human beings that no need, no force to create our reality. And this is where manifestation comes in as well. That is, these both male has to have his divine feminine awaken inside in order to create a powerful reality. And a female has to have her masculine as well to create in this physical reality. So as this is happening right now, we see more females taking charge, becoming business leaders, and as moving into the same job categories as males. And males are also, you see these days, are taking care of their kids and staying home. So it's creating a balance in a way where it is okay to be both, and that we are still powerful beings from within. Yeah. So that is my perception of understanding this divine feminine and masculine energies. It is the rotational spin of what already is, and we're just embodying it. So thank you, guys.
Beautiful. Thank you, Igor. I always appreciate Igor's perspective. I just want to jump in a little bit and sum up how I see, and then we'll hear from Debbie, is that when we say, I thought, why are we calling this beyond masculine, feminine? Most people don't even know they're divine, masculine, or feminine. But, you know, I think as the mystics in our culture are always pushing the envelope to the next level, and like the artist leading the way with new visions and what's possible. So yes, we came from the divine, we came from wholeness, and we divided into the polarities, and those polarities went to lower and lower levels until we totally forgot our divinity. And now that was involution. Now the evolution is to come back up, recognize the power that's in us, and recognize the power in each other. We're not divine masculine until we recognize the divine feminine. And it's what I think Celestine said, there's been such segregation and abuse and disconnect to the feminine that we lost the spirit, we lost our connection to our own wholeness. And by recognizing the divine feminine, the masculine then recognizes its own pure potential. There's a great saying by some indigenous native tribe that says, a bird can't fly with only one wing. If we're going to be humanity, we need both sides, both parts of the collective psyche to fly. And we haven't been flying. We've been stuck in limitation inside an old matrix. And it's because of this polarity that we have been so disconnected from ourselves and nature and who we are. But as we recognize each other and the beauty in everybody, looking at these amazing faces here and just seeing the radiance of the light coming through, really the divine aspect. When you look at someone's eyes and they are just shining, that is the divinity. And that, in a sense, is beyond the masculine and feminine. And we are working our way through the limited ideas of who we are back to that wholeness. And so when we actually recognize the divine in ourselves, it's great to see in others, but when we recognize the divine in ourselves, what Igor says, we come into this oneness of self. And as we return to the source, all those lessons of polarity and duality and division are resolved back to a higher level. As we go beyond the polarities, the magic of who we always have been starts to appear. And this is why I think a discussion like this and a panel on these different points of view, because we want this world of magic, because each of us have been living in our own individual world. So, what the Swami that me and Soraya studied with says, mantra and yantra is tantra. The sound and the light is the physical form. So when we take this physical form back into the divine and we merge with that, the whole process of divinity lights up. I've seen it in Soraya and some of the other people. It's like we become the mind of God. That is our potential as human beings. And that is, I think, our hope in this discussion today, is to just remind people of who they really are. And as I'm speaking, I'm reminding myself of it as well, because we get stuck in this world. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone. And that's my little piece for now. Thank you. Any comments?
And then we're going to have Samavisha Moksha Gayatri Devi. Would you like to add? I know you definitely have about the compendium of the collective and about the triad, so please do add your piece as well.
Okay, I'd be happy to. We're going to spontaneously riff. So in terms of the affirmation, the confirmation, the validation, and the represencing of all that's already been spoken. Yes, 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 yes. I invite our collective to now also venture forth into this mantra, tantra, yantra of the third emergence, which was revealed to me by the intergalactic royal family houses of light, which of course are stewarding this whole metamorphosis with us. And from their perspective, they saw that this tri-wave, which is the scalar wave emergence of the primordial femininity and primordial masculinity coming into that orgasmic coitus, that we're looking at an unprecedented miracle of the union of that which would constitute matter and antimatter, which has never been accomplished before in any space-time continuum. And in Asia, they referred to this miracle as this mating ritual of the phoenix and the dragon. So moving beyond the gender concepts of the masculine and femininity, they saw this huge primordial phoenix Kundalini as carrying both that strands, and that maybe being the matter manifestation from the mother, and feeling this dragon energy also carrying both the yin and the yang principles, and that being emergence from the void, right, or the prima materia. And this fantastic tantric alchemy is now literally being made available, not just to our species. Of course, this impacts every star species across the whole continuum. And I'm just having the birds fluttering outside the window to confirm this. This exquisite juxtaposition of the harmonic, where it's not just the masculine complementing the feminine or the feminine complementing the masculine. Usually these energies were so intense, so potent, so powerful that they literally couldn't occupy the same space, right? Previously, if they attempted to occupy the same space, you would just have, right, an explosion of energy, and then you couldn't sustain, right, the essence of that pulsation within a concrete, tangible manifestation of matter. No different than the challenges that we had when certain individuals, like in the Egyptian dynasties, came in and performed the Helios Gamos, and they just exploded into starbursts of light. They could no longer sustain that coherence, right, of that volume and velocity of light within their physical beingness. So what we're embarking upon now is this divine child and this emergence of this third archetypal dispensation of grace, which allows the matter and the antimatter, which allows the phoenix and the dragon to birth this new crystalline being that can accommodate literally both ends of the alpha and omega spectrum. And the humility for both the human and the galactic to basically bow in reverence in an astronomical awe that all of us in this continuum and the continuums that are partnering on this with us get to all simultaneously receive the benefit of the birth of this divine child. And so, in other words, we require all of the foundations of all of the messengers here to even open up that bridal chamber that is destined to surprise us all. And the only term that we really have access of going beyond the masculine and the feminine is the great mystery. So, I won't elaborate more other than we will surprise ourselves in partnership with our royal galactic relations, right? The interstellar councils, that the nature of consciousness is capable of actually more than we would have ever imagined. And that, to me, is the most glorious purpose of going through this grand adventure, right, into the individuations of these sparks, and now a coalescing that heretofore is at the level of stupendous grace. Ta-da!
Beautiful. If you didn't get some of the language that Debbie was speaking, that is light language, pure vibration. So thank you for that input there too. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Marianna.
Okay. Well, so I'd like to talk a little bit about, and I'm going to spotlight myself. I'd like to talk a little bit about the wound of the divine feminine. In discussing the divine feminine and the divine masculine, the wound is definitely a vital aspect of a conversation that has been going on for over 2,000 years and more. And I'd like to bring on Dr. Melissa Sophia Joy to talk a little bit about that in a little bit more depth of how that wound has affected women throughout the ages. So thank you.
Marianna. So first, I just want to say, I feel the elevation of the conversation and how it's rising and rising and rising. I'm in the flow of this high vibration. So thank you, everyone. And what I want to do first is to align this conversation to what you just said. I think your name, I forget your whole name, but Moksha, can I call you Moksha? The matter and antimatter. So what we're going to do is bring that concept down into 3D reality, because we are actually being tasked with healing a tremendous wound in the collective unconscious. And it's in the collective unconscious of the feminine, as well as the collective unconscious of the masculine. And when I was listening to you, Moksha, I was getting many levels of transmissions, but one of them was matter, antimatter. Oh, we could also say duality. If we bring that down on a lower density level so that our brains can actually understand it, we can call it light and dark. We could call it highest good and highest evil, right? And both have played a role in the evolution of humanity. So I don't want to make it wrong and right, even though we're talking about duality again, right? So what I will say is that because in my practice, I work primarily with women, that's just who I attract. And what I have seen again and again and again and again and again, especially for what I call the priestess guild, the healer archetype, who are finding themselves and uncovering who they really are and finding the blockages and healing the blockages that actually keep them from speaking, keep them from actually being who they are and leading with their soul's purpose. What we will very often inevitably run into are past life issues of being tortured or burned, or we can just continue on down that track, but you understand incredible violence that has been perpetuated on humanity. And it's both for women and for men. I've experienced working with women who have past lives of being killed as a man or vice versa. So I don't want to make it, women versus men, even though the general feeling is this is connected to the suppression of the divine feminine energy, principle, understanding, spirituality, all of these different things. And so, because this has also been my path of my awakening and my healing and my connection to the oneness of all that is, what I have discovered is that we do need to clear our system. We need to bring in this loving light from the divine to actually come into contact with each and every nook and cranny that says that we are not divine, that says that we have to be fearful of our survival to speak out, even though we're living in 2022, and we know that it's okay to speak out. But on an unconscious level, we have these parts and programs and different pieces that were placed there because of past life trauma, whether it be 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years, go on and on and on and on. If we've lived here long enough, we have a lot of trauma to work with. And so as we bring this light into our being, so that light from our higher self and the divine, both divine mother and the divine masculine energy and the beyond, coming into contact with the contractions, the programs, the beliefs, the density of our being that actually keeps us from connecting to our soul, what will happen is that those things will shift, they'll soften, we'll actually be able to come into direct contact with what's inside of us. What we were talking about, but what I was talking about before in terms of the divine feminine awakening, we could also call it the coming together of our masculine and feminine principles. We could also call it the softening of the ego enough so that we can come into direct contact with our soul mission, our soul purpose, our soul light. And at the very center of our soul, the divine that's always been there, that's always been this pure, innocent aspect of our soul that has never been tainted by anything. But in order to do that, we need to connect in a way, in my way, the way that I have been shown by multi-different ascended masters, especially Mary Magdalene, is to bring our higher self energy and open the conduit of divinity to bring that into direct contact with that which most needs our love, especially when we're working with past life energy. There's nothing that I have experienced that is the most potent healing and shifting that will allow the softening to happen. And it's honestly one of the reasons why I teach what I teach. So somatic awakening is completely connected to this. It is a path so that we can clear our system, our body, our ego, the density of the false beliefs that say that we're not divine, so that we can come into the unification of the light and the dark, the matter and the antimatter inside of us, and allow for our healing to bring our soul's purpose out, to make waves in the collective, so that the collective will shift and heal over time, so that we're no longer holding the density of the incredible traumatic wounding that has happened over the last few thousand years.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Soraya, would you like to say a few words on the divine feminine and the wound?
In relationship to the topic of, what is beyond, when I've gone through past life regressions and things at the end, for me, I always systematically at the end, I always merge into the light. I go into the essence, and it's that essence of going to the beyond through our practice that you get that instant healing. You get that is the healing, that is the unifying theory that everyone is seeking scientifically, spiritually. That is what will change the degrees, a couple of the ticks on the dial of perception, a couple of ticks, just to be able to then, for the men that are still in the old paradigm, if they can go to that place of essence, of the beyond, that is instant new perception as to unity consciousness that will heal the wound of the feminine and the masculine. And that for me has been the most awesome part of my journey. And talking about what Rev Devi also said, there is nothing more awesome. There is nothing more, how can I say? It is beyond the understanding of the essence and the awesomeness of this pure essence of who we are as bliss and light is so beyond anything our mind in our sense can comprehend. The experience of that puts you into absolute humility and absolute healing as to being divine at the same time. You are the most divine, beautiful creature in existence because you vibrate, and this is who you are at your core, this bliss. And at the same time, it gives you this most awesome humility at the same time to serve and to love. And I was speaking to someone who does backroom deals in regards to, governments. And he was like, what can I do? He goes, I speak to these people and they're so stubborn, and how do I get them to change their mind? And it's the same concept of how do we get to that point of healing? And so inspiring people to keep on their path is so important, because eventually we will open up, as Alan and I have said. It is our destiny. We are at that point of evolution, that tipping point where more and more people are going to pop in. And like I said to him, the old paradigm is you bribe people, and that's still going on in the world. You want this? Well, they want the money, they want the bribe. It's in that greedy mindset. But when you go tap into the divine, I said the other path, which is now emerging more with people like Melissa's work and and all of us speaking about it and sharing and inspiring people to delve deeper into their being, is if we can enact and awaken that communion with spirit. It's communion. That's what I learned through my awakening. It's communion to the divine, to that conscious life force bliss energy. And that, it's so, for me, it's so funny. That for me was like, it's once I was over that and I had that new point of reference, I was like, if just everybody knew, you know, it's just a couple of ticks, turn the dial a couple of ticks and you're in this communion. But then again, we're still in a place where people, it is at the lower dimension and personality dimension, the ego dimension, there still needs to be purification and process to open our channels, because what the process is opening our nervous system. And it's awakening to an evolved nervous system. It's not just the brain, it's the body, brain, and beyond. It's our energy channels connecting root-wise down to the earth and out to the heavens at the same time. We're like a starburst of energy neuron network connecting to the energy highway. And that is done through the practice, the simple practice of, as we know, breath work. And there's many kinds of breath work. So yes, this is the consciousness of understanding that 0 point energy, the beyond, that will heal that and bring about the paradigm shift of healing between, and the balance between the masculine and the feminine.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Should we get Simon in on this conversation?
Absolutely.
Simon, good to
Let's get Simon and Rosalind after. Absolutely.
Hello. Yes, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. This is a very significant issue of divine masculine, of divine feminine, because one of the things that came to the forefront, especially during the darkness of this pandemic, was how the darkness of this pandemic, it just enveloped all of us. And I'm sure it brought a lot of very issues of shadow and dark issues within us to the forefront for us to confront, especially as light workers. And during last year, I then began the official process of healing my divine masculine and running that through the very extensive vortex healing protocol. I knew it was time. All the signs were there. I was aligned with trying to understand what the divine masculine was through my relationship with the nature deity of Green Man. And also through the divine consciousness and teacher that is Merlin. And as I was running it through the protocol, I went through a period of bringing up a lot of sadness and feeling a lot of sadness, and just first it came across as this yearning that there was not enough joy in my life. But the insight that came from that, I remember I was walking down the street, and that's when I felt the divine masculine just sort of like reveal itself. And it was a beautiful feeling because it was above all the expectations of what one thought the masculine was. It was above all the expectations and all those projections of what men thought masculine was. And it came to this, that the divine masculine is a power and a strength that has nothing to prove. And it was very specific. The divine masculine is not egoic, so it has nothing to prove or boast about. The divine masculine is not insecure, so therefore it has nothing to compensate for. The divine masculine is not angry or full of rage, so it has no need to be aggressive. And the divine masculine is not repressed or stoic. And so therefore it honors the courage to express one's emotions. And there I was, aligned with that lovely power and strength that was above all that, that said, no, my strength is for the highest good. My strength comes from the highest divine good, and is therefore the most purest form of action, as it bridges itself into the physical, as it bridges ourselves into our actions. Another part of this healing was the issue of my own body. I have struggled with issues of an eating disorder and body dysmorphia, which was very interesting for me to experience this because in the early stages, as it was being confronted, it was more an issue. It was the expectation was more an issue for women than it is for men. But that was my wound. That was my wound in which I was aligned with. That I trusted the feminine. I trusted the feminine more. I felt comfortable there, but I did not trust the masculine. And that's maybe something we may associate more with how women feel. But I have no doubt more men feel this. And as the divine deities in which I bring forth my pantheon of Green Man, of Merlin, I also have that, of course, of Gaia and that of Amma or Amachi, those who remember Amachi. Both Green Man and Amma, the divine masculine and the divine feminine, came together and said, I am going to help you heal this relationship with your body, because your body is of earth. The earth is sacred. As Green Man, as of earth, I felt it very powerfully how Amma, I felt it when I was in Darshan with her, how she just embraced the earth. They say metaphorically embracing the earth. No, I sensed into it, and she was literally hugging and embracing the earth. So she too was saying, as I heal the earth, I also heal her body, because her body is part of the sacredness of earth. So this is how I'm kind of seeing it right now, what the divine masculine, divine feminine represents, because beyond the divine masculine and divine feminine, there is that oneness. But then you just go a little, just go a little bit under, and there's still that oneness. But then, of course, there is the different expressions and flavors, which is called consciousness. So there, of course, there is the divine consciousness of feminine. There is the divine consciousness of masculine. But that is simply what happens when you start to go down to the tiers as these divine expressions and these divine consciousness start to manifest into the physical. And that is how I'm kind of seeing it. The divine masculine and the divine feminine become a bridge to help us embody that divinity as a physical being, and also and bridge it into our humanity, and therefore the vehicle and purpose of the divine masculine and divine feminine starts off, I think, by saying, as that bridge is okay, how can you go beyond divine feminine and the divine masculine if you are not embodying it here as a physical being, if you are not embodying it, if you are not embodying it here in your humanity, because and that is where I am right now. And what I'm learning right now as I heal my divine masculine, it's I very much want to get to healing the divine feminine and bring that through the protocol. But I feel it's wisdom telling me to wait as I embody more what it means to be more whole as this expression of divine masculine, as I now align myself more with my purpose in action, in success, in doing, in confidence. But I know very well that when the divine feminine calls, I will be there to heal it too. And just one more thing, because one expression or experience I had with the divine feminine is that as a vortex healing wizard, I am able to channel a beautiful expression of the divine feminine into my system, and I channel it, and it goes deep into my childhood and releases a wound of the girls in my grade school who bullied me. And I thought that was very appropriate, because it was sort of like such a loving, nurturing place to go in and heal that aspect of my inner child. And which of course, again, is another way in which this divine expression is helping me, of course, to divine my full expression here as a human being. And that is how I see it. We must
Beautiful.
honor the divine masculine feminine as that divine and sacred bridge from that oneness.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Let's bring on
Rosalind.
Rosalind. Hi, Rosalind. Joining us live from
Hi,
Israel.
Hi, and thank you for that very, very heartful and deep, deep sharing on a personal level from a masculine for your experience, Simon. And I send you many blessings and much love. The journey continues and it continues to open for you. That's what we're here for. Indeed. All of the accounts today have been so very inspiring and very deep and very true on all levels, through all the aspects. I myself came into this existence, beingness, having an awareness of both masculine and feminine of myself. So I came that way, and I had a continuous self-observance. I was the observer of myself, as that's what we are, the observers of ourselves. And it starts with the child that we are. It starts and it ends there. It begins there, and it changes from within. Where is the inner child? Who is our higher guidance of purity and innocence, our inner sense. And that's where we can come back in with the calm and find the balance, which is the balance between the two different energies that gives us our direction. And so I observed many things on my journey as a child and ask questions of yourself. When you ask, you shall receive an answer. It is about consciousness. We are conscious beings in a physical body, and we are also part of Gaia. We're part of everything. So our struggle now has been to find ourselves again, to touch our inner child again, to heal the core wounds. And we came here to forget everything so that we can start to remember again and rise even higher and bring those lessons forward for consciousness itself, for the divine creator itself, experiencing itself through us from both sides, because we came already complete as one, yet we have the honor and the experience to experience ourselves from both sides. And ultimately we learn that it is all love. That's why we don't look upon differences as the masculine as something foreign. And anytime we go around it, we're going to come back to that word that we don't like to use called alien. We've alienated ourselves from the true nature of being. I guess it's just flowing. I had no idea what I was. I hadn't even an idea of what kind of a meeting we were having, sort of.
Well, thank you.
But it should always be that way, shouldn't it? So, being of consciousness, it truly is what we are. It is my ever-expanding passion and my interest. So, the most loving heart and the highest intentions. I'm happy to share my truth in hopes it will help others, always. and sharing that wisdom that we gain along the way with others that comes from many years as in experiences in this life here on earth as a human, a multidimensional, galactic, celestial being of expressions and impressions. Beyond these, perhaps, that I've yet to discover were the many aspects of the divine God self that we all have. And of that we are, each of us, a bright spark, a fractal of the entirety of the all beingness and the infinite time space continuum that we all have access to when we allow ourselves to breathe and let go of the programs, let go of what we were taught, that we were limited. And that is what keeps getting in our way. So no matter what, all of this, we are in the phase of facing it now. Together, we in essence are all that is. The choice is ours. So that's why we're here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, beautiful channeling of that divine, actually, essence. I just want to add one thing, Marianna, is when you initially said the wound, and I think we've all addressed aspects of the wound, but what came up for me was the wound was the separation from the feminine. You know, I'm here, feminine, and maybe it's the birth trauma or something, but you know, that on a human level, it's the wound between the masculine and feminine, that loss, that trying to connect. That's what all the love songs in all the world were written about. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, it's like that's one level of the wound, but the feminine also represents the separation from the divinity. So what we're really seeking in the other is the union with with the divine. And that wound, I think it's present for everyone all the time. I mean, you wake up and it's somehow there, that separation, until you go back to that other place of higher union. It's somehow, it's always reminding us of there's something more. Soraya, were you going to say something? Did you? Wait, unmute.
Yeah, I was just agreeing with you. It's all about reconnecting. It's about the communion. It's about sacred communion to our heart. And that's what gives us the sacred communion to everything. And we've cut off parts of ourselves. So men have cut off their feminine side. And I think that's what you're speaking about. You're speaking about the wound of cutting yourself off from a certain aspect of yourself. This is a journey about becoming whole and evolving into our wholeness.
Right, but it's also the wound of the separation that we've experienced just physically as well. Look, we've all been locked inside these little Zoom boxes for the last 2 years. We need connection, the tantric, the union, on the physical, emotional, spiritual,
On all
and
levels. Yeah.
higher divine levels. So the wound is always present until those moments where, oh, it's not. Yes, Celestine, what were you going to say?
Fantastic. Well, I just want to take it to a place of, first of all, that we are all expressions of the source. And so, glory in the light of the radiant one, we are all divinely brought forth as expressions of existence. So I've spent the last 45 years in working in deep trauma. I lived through deep trauma. I'm a survivor of deep sexual satanical. So I've looked back into the history. I've lived in villages where there was only one woman after the Inquisition. and feeling the strength of someone, one woman in a village, that they destroyed all the women, the suppression, the anger, the fear, the being in a place where you are not safe from the time you are quite small, a child, until you become of age. And so I observed the world and all the wounds, and it led me to a place where I ended up in the forest. I was the yogini. I was the one meditating. I did have the Kundalini experience, although I prepared myself through, as you say, the breathing, the Hatha yoga, the Raja yoga, the Kundalini yoga, the different meditations, but it prepared me. But yes, there are, different forms of Kundalini. If not guided, they are dangerous. I do want to lay that on the platform. And so those of us who later walking down out of the woods after being with the immortals who taught me the way, who connected me, if I hadn't had my near-death experience and gone through the light, I think I would have not had that understanding, and I merged with the all and came back. And in the forest, when I was elevated to the point that the immortals started appearing to me, they gave me the understanding and they called me together with 7 other people and we began to process. I call it the pra. And the tools were given forth. And I'm so grateful. The tools were given forth with how to heal the wound. And so to understand each person is so individual. And you open and you peel back. Why did you come into that life? Why did you pick the mother? Why did you pick the father? Why did the women, the matriarchals, give over to the patriarchals through violence? So the questions are, why are we creating this? That's where you begin, And so I was shown through working with the illuminated ones, how to take a person back before their birth, because that's when they are divine. You recognize they've walked through the fires of time. We haven't turned to ash. We have been forged as diamonds, right? So one tear from our eyes can heal the world. We have opened the way of compassion, love, balance, truth, and harmony. So when you ask someone, well, why did you pick your mother and father? Why did you come into that? You see, they look at whether it was personal or was it a mission or both. They know exactly what it is. You know exactly. And to have clarity, some people need clarity. Some people don't, I had a Lumitron machine that would put light into the eyes and it would just go through the neurological and it would bust through neurological pathways that were just frozen. So they didn't have to really look. They'd see images, but they didn't have to process. But those who want to process and come into the mastery of understanding, why did you create that for yourself? So if it's personal, you say, okay, well, what happens to someone, the feminine or the masculine? And thank you, Simon, for sharing so authentically. I mean, that's the real deal. When we look at and we say, well, why did we create that? I needed to learn about the lower nature of man, of masculine. I needed to learn about the lower nature of feminine. I needed to learn about self-worth, soul retrieval, all of these things. I have seen thousands, probably over 10,000 people. So I could tell you it's really important. And also some people coming in to learn about it through the physical process, to gather strength, to call back their soul, to call back their power. We go in and we rescue the inner child. We rescue the 15-year-old. We rescue, and we look at the different personalities, And so these personal reasons for manifesting our lives, this is what comes up. And then we look at the mission. They say, well, it was both. I had to learn how to do this so that I could carry out my mission so I could help others. And that's where a lot of people are right now, is that they've recognized their deepest wounds and they're healing them, but it enables them to step forward onto the platform of, I'm going to help be in service. Now, as an Egyptian, as a Kemetic Egyptian, I want to say that there's a process of alchemy. And this process, the 7 levels, the 7 steps of alchemy, which is given to us by the light beings who, for me, never really exploded, but, you know, we're anchoring light, like I'm anchoring the light of the one at this very moment. And I just want to say these different processes. It's called calcination, which is the burning down of our lives, you know, divorce, fire, they left me, I left them. Dissolution makes you say, well, what was my fault in it? You have to really look at the darkness, look at your part in it. Why did you create it? The people who have harmed us, and it takes sometimes a while, you know, this is not something for people to say, well, that didn't really happen. Maybe it takes a while to recognize, yes, you came into this situation. This is yours to master, and you learn from this. So you pick up the pieces, dissolution, and then you separate them. What do I want to take with me? What is in the highest good? Then you say, I get it. I have to look at my stuff, my wound. The women have to look at our wound, how we've surrendered our power into a violent, reverse consciousness, male order. And the males also look at that. And this awakening that's happening, I have seen so many male hearts open, and they tell me it's painful, but I just honored just sitting in the presence of a male that was going through the process of having their heart burst open for the first time and feeling love. Yeah. They didn't even know how to feel love. And so you have this separation where you pick the finest and you bring it together, and you say, okay, I'm stepping into conjunction, which is bringing forth the authentic self. And so recognizing that you want to be your true self, and we're shedding all of the earth is shedding these, you know, racism and all these things. I was never raised around racism. I didn't even know it happened until 16 years old. I came to America. But we're shedding these dark programs and allowing ourselves to step forward. There are over 10 million of us right now registered for unity, just to do meditations. I'm so honored that we're moving forward. And then it goes into fermentation. So we have that pool, that cesspool of all of the wounds, but through the wounds and the process comes purification. And I could say that I've walked through the valley of the shadow of darkness, the dragon and the phoenix. I have walked through, and so this purification that happens brings you to a place of illumination and elevation of consciousness. And my purpose here is to assist in the elevation of consciousness. And so as we evolve and we move through this fermentation, which is partly to purify, let go of all of that, so that we may come into a purified state of awareness, then it is the distillation, the purest form of the self that comes forth and speaks before you. And this is the higher level. And so we have the higher levels, which is the last is the coagulation, in which you become the divine child. And so I think all of us, I feel everybody on this call today, you are of the divine children. And beyond, what is beyond? Doing more of what we're doing now. Every one by one, to bring people into a state of awakened consciousness, so that we become one human race of awakened consciousness. That's
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm.
And I just want to add to that, if I might. The feminine wound itself, what it represents to me, and I, as part of my regular energy work, I do soul retrieval, and I do past life regression. And I have found, and I've actually traveled to the Middle East and to Israel in 2018. And I've embarked on a major journey of actually uncovering a few of my past lives that had dealt with the divine feminine wound itself. And it's taken a while for me to be able to heal that. And like Celestine was saying, it took it was a process. It took many steps to be able to heal that. And a lot of the generation right now that is awakening in record numbers are going through that process right now of being able to see past that trauma, past that wound. They're still reliving their feminine wounds in many different areas through their cellular memory. But the ability to go past it and to go past the point of fear and ridicule, and to know and to be able to awaken more and more into the understanding that being who they are, whether they are feminine or masculine, being who they truly are in stepping into their authentic selves and stepping into their authentic role and accomplishing the mission and the purpose that they are here to accomplish is not going to get them killed necessarily or per se, or is not going to get them into the state of ridicule that was so feared for over thousands of years, that it is now becoming more safe to breathe into what life has to offer. I just actually had Jody Sirota tell me that it is safe to breathe into what life has to offer now. And so a lot of people that are awakening are beginning to see that it is very safe to step into their roles. It is safe to practice their crafts. It is safe to be who they are. And that is one of the major things that we wanted to accomplish by bringing this panel forward, is to let people know that it is okay and it is safe for you to step into your authentic roles and for you to walk this earth safely in your own body, in your own matter, in whoever you are, because you are here for a purpose. And my biggest thing is, when I began my journey, I focused inward on the awakening of the return of Divine Sophia and the concept of what Shahina represented. So for that, I'm actually going to turn the table over to Igor. Igor, talk a little bit about that, the return of Divine Sophia from the masculine point, and then we bring on Melissa to talk about it from the feminine.
So I want to touch base on the womb a little bit before going into the Shekinah energy. And the womb is a place of birth, right? It is a place of where life begins. And from the darkness of the universe, light came to earth. So if from the darkness, light comes, and we hear always on this plain physical 3D reality, when we meditate, we always bring in the white light. Light is temporary, but the darkness is constant. And I also work a lot with women that are have trauma or abuse, and most of the stuff is held in their sexual organs, in the ovaries, in the uterus, in the kidneys, the lower 3 chakras. And the approach that I use sometimes, which helps a lot, is instead of bringing in the light, let's sit in the darkness itself. Because the darkness is the neutrality of it all, and the light is the separation. So the mind is constantly trying to justify itself. The ego tries to justify itself and finds excuses. Well, this happened and that happened and this, and the mind keeps going and going and going until it exalts all the tools. But we can kind of, if we're strong enough and we can guide people into this bypassing all these little beliefs and just come right into the darkness and sit within it, you will go beyond all your humane experiences and start to kind of dismantle this blueprint of beliefs and experiences, because we attach ourselves that this happened to me. And then the body has to store it somewhere. And then the body stores it, and then this nervous system starts to malfunction within the brain, and these stories keep replaying in ourselves. And we never get out of it because we're constantly trying to heal. So if you're trying to constantly heal, then you will attract always something to heal. That is the consciousness operation itself. It has its own thought process. Our logic cannot connect to that logic because it has no logic. It is an energetic field that just allows us, oh, you're thinking of this, then let me bring you this. And now that you're constantly thinking, now you're tapping into the other dimensions of past life, future lives that also resonated with that trauma. And we're constantly in that loop of healing. So you're constantly attracting yourself to heal something. And sometimes it's good to take in, just bring into that energy, into that darkness, and sit within it. And instead of bringing the light, bring in that darkness and see what truly happens. And from that, the true essence of Shekinah starts to come, because she is all of that. She is the rainbow colors, she is the light, she is the darkness, and she loves it all. And then our mind opens up and says, oh, wait a minute. I see what I can do with this trauma. Now I can portray it into the world, and I can assist, and I can use it as a tool to enlighten this world. And this is the power of Shekinah. She is the one that does not separate or segregate. She utilizes all experiences and seizes them as, this is going to be my power. This is going to be my guiding channel, that I can move and create this 3D reality and form it into the light. And this is when we start coming into our hearts. We start to come into our hearts, and then we start to say, okay, this experience justified who I am, and I'm going to use this as a tool. Until then, we're constantly in a motion of doing more and creating more and keep doing and keep doing. That is the masculine that wants to continuously to do. But the feminine just relaxes into it and says, don't worry, I will love you no matter what, because you are nourished, and who you truly are, I accept. I accept it all, because there is no separation. And once you embody that within yourself, you start to love and nurture and hug yourself and really appreciate your body and appreciate everything that happened, because you see the positivity out of that outcome. I understand sometimes for the mind, it is like, but how do I do this? That's what we came here, is to kind of retrain this vehicle, because we associate ourselves, this is mine, and this is my pain, and this is my suffering. So we're constantly stuck in it. So we have to kind of be stronger and say, okay, let me just find this dark moment. And from that darkness, a new reality will sprawl out, and a new birth is given. And one of the things that I have done myself, I went away into a dark room. So I sat in that darkness, and it is not an easy thing. And I've done several of them, is because it really allows you to go deep into your consciousness, all the way to your mother's womb. All these stories that have occurred and you created and you have adapted from your family or your friends, they will come to the surface. And this is the time to transmute them. This is the time to honor them, not even to push them away. Because if you push, you're creating more to push. If you bring it in and absorb it into your heart, it will transmute, because this is the vortex. That is what the great Shekinah is. She is the vortex that transmutes it all and absorbs it all with great love, with great compassion and nurturing. That nurturing energy that she is, you kind of just say, I surrender all. I surrender trying to heal. I surrender trying to do. Let it all just come to me naturally. And from that, your cells start to vibrate. Your cells within your body start to have this shaking that goes through. It's like an earthquake within your womb, within your ovaries, within your testicles, and the males feel that as well. Because once the female starts to honor herself, he will honor her as well, because she's attracted a reflection of what she is. And therefore, we hold the space for one another for these moments of transformation, transmutation that we go through. And it is never pushing anything away. It is absorbing it in, because that is the experience you came to have. As long as we start to look at things from the higher perspective of the I am presence of your higher self, your source, whatever you want to call it. So it is a tool that we all need to understand how to utilize in our own benefit. And that is the understanding to me of Shekinah, because as she comes through, she is power of gentleness and transformation. There is nothing else, because everything else is the play of your mind, constantly trying to justify and validate that you exist, the importance of the ego or the personality. So thank you for allowing me to share that.
Great. Wow. Great insight. Thank you. Okay.
Alan, would you like to add a few words on that?
No, I want to hear what Melissa has to say, because you want that balance. I'm here for balance. So yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Melissa.
So I just, first of all, just want to say, Igor, I so deeply resonated with what you just shared. It actually brought into mind my own experience that I didn't think I was going to be sharing, but I just heard very clearly from Sophia, this is a story. So I'm going to be sharing just a really brief story of something that's very similar to what you talked about, Igor. I'll set it up by saying, my work sounds very similar to your work. I lead people into the darkness of their being, the place inside that most needs attention. We don't go searching unless there's something that's there, because I work with people who have physical symptoms and emotional, energetic symptoms. We just let the body lead and bring in what I call higher self witness consciousness to hold space in the darkness with them. Whatever is there, whatever arises. It might be a protective barrier, or it might be a crying child in the corner, whatever is there, right? So we just bring awareness. When I was first learning this, I was in a dark night of the soul experience. I had gone to many, many different therapists and healers and rituals and unit initiations, all sorts of different types of things. And I had this experience where I started calling on the divine. How do I heal this? And this primarily was very intensive abuse as a child, which includes sexual abuse, as well as, for me, I probably about 20 years ago, the boundary that separates us from past lives disappeared. So I've had thousands of years of past life information, not because I've necessarily cognitively wanted it, but that's what I needed to heal. So that brought me into this dark night of the soul experience, where I finally was like, okay, spirit, show me. That's whenever Mary Magdalene and Yeshua started showing up. And I went into this deep path. So in the middle of this, I was actually on a multiple day meditation retreat with the teacher Adyashanti. Some of you may know of him. And primarily, Adya was holding space, but I was doing my own process over here, connecting the higher self with this deep darkness, this deepest darkness that I had ever experienced in my entire life. We could call it walking through the hell realms. And I knew from the guidance of Mary Magdalene and Yeshua, just stay with it, just stay with it, just stay with it. Higher self-witness, right here, right here, right here. And I would feel at times, oh my God, this is too much. I can't do this. I can't do this. And they would come in, you got this. We're right here with you. Higher self-witness right here. Don't fall into it. You can feel into it, but don't fall into it. And it would just kept on getting deeper and darker and darker and darker. So now we're on day 3. Day 3, probably 5, 6, sometimes 7 hours a day meditating. I was at my limit. I was totally at my limit. I was about ready to crack. I was about ready to walk out of the meditation hall, honestly. And what happened is that I went down into the deepest darkness, as deep as it can go. And then all of a sudden, this huge white light and this booming female voice that said, I am here. I have always been here. I will always be here. I have been with you through every single thing you have ever walked through, and every single thing you will ever walk through in the future. And I was literally flattened. I was dumbfounded. I was in ecstasy. I was completely spread open in this curiosity and this deep kind of, I had no words to actually even understand what was going on. Then, as I got to know her, as we started really this deep conversation, what's really going on here? Who are you? What are you, Divine Mother? The answer is yes. Are you Sophia? Yes. Are you Shekinah? Yes. Are you Shakti? Yes. Are you the Divine Feminine? Yes. Are you and everyone or just me? Everyone. And everyone and everything in all life. All life, all life. There's nothing that is alive that I am not alive in. That includes the highest vibrational forces, and that includes the lowest density forces. Sophia Shekinah is in everything. And so what we are doing is living our lives with our personalities, with our higher selves leading, with all of the high vibrational choices and the low vibrational choices that people are making. And Sophia Shekinah, Divine Mother, is here with all of us, living everything. It is imprinted everywhere. So in my experience of this, I really started understanding as a person that came from the South. I was raised in a Southern Baptist church most of my life and had experienced the Holy Spirit in church. If you've ever been in a church, especially fundamentalist church, they can raise the Holy Spirit and you feel it in your body. And I remember being on pilgrimage in France. It was a Mary Magdalene pilgrimage. And I had this incredible experience in Sainte Marie de la Mar, in the church there. Sophia came in as well as Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. And when I was talking to Sophia, I said, so you're Holy Spirit? Yes, I am Holy Spirit. I am all of this. And so what we are asked to do as we come into contact with the feminine inside is to feel, sense, drop into that in the very, very essence, in the very, very, very core, beyond identity with self. When we come into identity with the oneness of the divine within us, we are coming into oneness with the divine feminine inside of us.
Great. Hey, I just want to say, Saria, did you have a similar experience when you awoke into the divine feminine too? Wait, unmute. Yes.
So first of all, I was raised in a way where I was raised that I was just like a guy. So I didn't have that mental, at least not in this life. And I understand there's the collective. I didn't have that block. I played football with the guys. I learned I couldn't keep up with the guys by playing with them at a certain point that I couldn't, but nobody implanted that in my head growing up. I was always raised I could do anything. Well, my experience of awakening it was more of the beyond. It didn't have a masculine, feminine. It instantly took me to that place of the beyond. And for me, it was, when I had my awakening, I wasn't even looking for it. And it was through an energy catalyst, what I call these healers that are energy catalysts. And it was somebody that I didn't even know did that. I went to him because I thought he was just a masseur. so there's no preconceived ideas that this was going to happen, that I could have even evoked it myself. I do think it was my destiny though. And I think it was my destiny because I actually had a dream when I was 18 of the very same experience. And so of going into this fiery bliss and just becoming this awareness beyond ego identity that was just this fiery bliss. And so that's what my awakening was. And I just wanted to mention, because Melissa spoke so thoroughly about that. Yes, I have a lot of similarities, but it did go beyond masculine, feminine. But Celestine was saying something about Kundalini being dangerous. And yeah, it does. There is, anything is dangerous for in the respect that when you go through these awakenings and these leaps in consciousness, and you're going in essence into the unknown, that there's a part of your mind, I guess, they often in traditions, they say you have to prepare the vessel, which includes the mind. The mind can be your biggest, hindrance or your biggest help when you get to these big leaps. And so if people aren't working on their shadow self, which is what we're talking about, it's not just about the light, it's about going into the shadow. Because when you go into this, you go into whether you want to call it, I guess, your subconscious being. It magnifies everything. It magnifies the blessings that you're going to now be able to channel into the world. And it magnifies your dark side and your fears and everything else. But in order, it's bringing those up for the very purpose, as Celestine says, is because you have to confront these things and transmute them, as kind of Igor was talking about. because they're meant to be looked at and removed because you want your channels to be open. And these are misconceptions of the mind that are blocking your process. And that is what some people have had. Kundalini awakening can be so dramatic sometimes and completely be different to what you have known your whole life. Stepping into the unknown is a little bit more challenging for some people. And that's why it's good to have guides and healers and things that have been on the path. And that's why we do this. That's why we're talking. That's why I share to help people on the path to know that they're not going crazy. Because that was one of my things when I went. I did have such dramatic experiences, continually going into the unknown, having to process these new perceptions. I literally thought a few times, am I going crazy? And luckily, I did not have someone to turn to. So I learned to ground myself, and I learned that balance of working with, integrating things. But I had to learn that myself, because the person who was the energy catalyst that popped it open, he wasn't that person. He has not had that kind of awakening, but he can help. He gives energetic awakenings to people who go to him. However, he has not had that level of Kundalini awakening. But yes, Kundalini can be, it's not always for the faint of heart. It's very good to have a community, which we're trying to create here, of people that you can talk to ground and to process. That is one thing I wanted to address. And in regards to, going into the light and into the shadow, and yes, just as Igor was saying, and the Shekinah is definitely, that to me is, that terminology I don't, relate to. But for me, I've had several instances where the darkness is where, when it's more of a creative process for me, because I'm a writer and I've always been in very creative fields. And I noticed that when I meditated, and I started meditating very young, I noticed when I meditated, if I wanted to call to my, to the universe to come up with creative ideas or solutions, I would not call to the light. I would actually meditate, and I'd go into the darkness, because that's where the light would manifest from, meaning the creative ideas. So I always had that relationship to the darkness as not just something that's where the negativity lies in your shadow self, which I understand, but also that is where things manifest from, and to call to it, to manifest creatively. There's also another beautiful story that I want to share. When I was in the Amazon and exploring ayahuasca, it's not my story, but again, it's another confirmation about having an understanding of the dark, the shadow, but also the beauty and the power of the darkness as being a positive source. So it's an example of that. There was someone in our group that his partner, his fiance, had been sexually molested, and she was there to heal that. And the shaman said, you be prepared to do spiritual battle. Well, the last session, this is like in 10 days, the last day, she actually fell asleep, which is kind of rare in ayahuasca. And her fiance suddenly was able to see the spiritual dimension, and he saw a shaman come, working on her energetically. And then he saw this evil spirit come, and he suddenly recognized it was the spirit of the father. The father had molested her. And it was a classic thing where he had been a preacher and molested all the daughters. So he saw this evil spirit, he recognized it to be the father. And he said that the spiritual battle was a battle of wills, which makes sense. So he was focusing on making the spirit go away, but it wasn't going away. It was attached to her. And so he said that suddenly he felt this dark force behind him, and this incredible powerful dark force. And first it scared him. Then he realized, as his intuitive wisdom was opening in that moment, that it was actually the spirits of the force that had come to lend their power to help him do spiritual battle. And he allowed that darkness of the that presented itself as the spirits of the forest to come through him. And he did spiritual battle and it cut the tie. And I love this story because it shows the connectivity of all of us, is that when she awoke, she didn't know what had happened. And she said she felt like a veil had lifted between her and her fiance, where she felt this expression of affection and love that she'd never felt. And she wanted to kiss him. And she looked at him as her hero. And she didn't know. Obviously, she knew energetically. And then I interviewed them. And it was so interesting to watch because he was more of a doubting Thomas. He had that certain mind. He experienced it. And he would say, you know, I know it happened, but did it really happen? And she was crying, going, I know it happened because I feel the difference. But that was such a beautiful story to me also about this whole understanding of the darkness and the light, and how, you know, there's so much to understand about it. It's not just so cut and dry as we've been taught, you know, and how it can be positive and how we can't ignore our shadow self. There's also a really interesting connection between the Inca tradition and the Taoist tradition. And in the Inca tradition, they don't see darkness and light as good and bad, which is what we're talking about. We're expanding the understanding of the darkness and the light and the balance and the masculine and the feminine. But they see it as lighter and heavier energy. And everybody is headed to becoming lighter. And the people that are lighter are meant to help the, you know, heavier, the people more in the heavy energy rise. So I think that's also a nice little shift mentally to look at it like that, or at least to share that, because it makes sense in terms of making the journey not so, you know, this is good, this is bad, which causes people to get stuck and sometimes not want to look at that heavier side instead of the bad side. Do you know what I'm saying? Labeling it like the bad or that, but seeing it as like this is heavier and lighter seems to mentally help people, you know, want to work with both sides a little more.
Thank you. No, I think that's great. I was almost stopped you before you told that forest story, but I think that was really an important story to help those elements come through and welcome existence, because we think we're isolated. And that story just showed me, no, we have so much help if we just are open to it. So yes, back to you, Marianna. Thank you, Soraya. Yes.
Thank you, Soraya. That was absolutely magnificent. I completely agree. And that was such a beautiful story to really kind of hone in on that. That was absolutely remarkable. So thank you so much, Soraya. Thank you on that. So I just wanted to ask a question. And the question that I was going to be referring to, exactly following what Soraya was saying, is the equality, the balance of being, the balance between both the feminine and the masculine energies. And how does one truly seeing and envision how they achieve that? So let's ask Simon. Simon, what is your take on how does someone truly begin to achieve being equal within their feminine and their masculine, and the balance of their entirety of being? Thank you.
Well, I said this jokingly, but it's also very serious. You heal and you heal and you heal and you heal and you heal some more. I think I've been very fortunate, because I know that I have lived a life with a very interesting balance between male and female. I'm always trying to balance that, and the balance that I definitely go back to the healing that I have done on the Divine Masculine. And one of the very profound insights is that it took my attention and reminded me, honor the feminine. And that is a discipline. The discipline to honor ourselves. It takes very profound and vulnerable self inquiry for some people. For some people who have grown up with these wounds, we have inherited how at times we not just disrespect one another, but how we have completely forgotten the spiritual beings we are, the sacred beings that we are. As Merlin, with each healing, with each transmission, brings me higher and higher in this beautiful divine frequency. Everything is circumspect. I mean, we think of the wounds like trauma, like those horrible traumas of abuse, but no, everything that is not in harmony, from the very overt to the very subtle, has to go back into the light. And what I'm also definitely learning right now is aligning my behavior with that way of honoring the divine feminine and the divine masculine, because I knew I grew up learning how to be whole as a man. I did not grow up learning how to be whole as a man. I mean, I grew up learning how to be anxious about everything. I grew up learning how to feel insecure about everything. I grew up learning how to be very angry about everything. But and it's a very tenuous to align your actions in such a way, because you're always having to keep looking at yourself and keep going back to have the courage to be vulnerable, to look at every aspect of yourself. That's where the balance is. You don't know when it will be time to heal the divine feminine. You don't know when it will be time to heal the divine masculine. That is not for you to say, but the divine will definitely take your attention and let you know when it is time. And I am very fortunate that I have brought forth these beautiful divine deities like Merlin and Green Man and Amma and even Karuna Mai, and even Christ. All of them come forth at that time because they see the higher picture of saying, okay, now this must come into balance now. Yeah, okay. I'm just talking and waiting for my intuition to just point me in the direction. And yes, there it is, that vulnerability, that resonates very deeply. That is where the true core of this balance comes from, between divine masculine and divine feminine, this vulnerability to go to that rawest place within you and bring rawest, most pain-filled part of you, to bring light and healing there. That is risk. That takes tremendous courage. That takes tremendous, also deep surrender as well. That is where I find the balance.
I hope I can
Thank
jump
you.
in here, Simon.
Thank
just for a second and
Thank
say,
you. Okay. Thank you so much, Simon. That was wonderful. Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful answer. Thank you. And now, Rosalind, would you like to add to what Simon was so magnificently put it together? Thank you.
so beautiful. It is such an honor that feeling you and hearing you in your expression of everything that you're processing and bringing forth, Simon. And as you were doing that, I was feeling you too, and feeling that those are your divine higher aspects walking you through. And that's a beautiful thing. I really appreciate that sharing.
Thank you.
I wanted to speak about the responsibility that we're here for, the responsibility, touching back on the Kundalini awakening, and how that can be very different from one to another in the experience, and why it can be possibly traumatic for one, or how about someone witnessing someone having a Kundalini experience? Has anyone ever had that? Hold on, I think someone's
Yeah.
trying to come in here. Did you let them in? Yeah.
I'll let
I
him.
did.
Yeah.
All right. So yes, and how about if someone is witnessing someone having a Kundalini experience, and becomes, let's talk about my experience, because it was an exceptional experience. And this is why I believe we have to be responsible to how we portray the Kundalini experience, and invite others to look into that for themselves, or to look into their awareness for that changes are happening to them. I had an experience, I think I was around 19, 18, and I believe I woken up sooner than that, but in this specific experience. And I want to speak to the power of what can happen, which is why learning about all aspects of Kundalini awakening can help to prepare you. Like you were saying, we have to be prepared not only physically, emotionally, mentally. So what happened was, I was in a place of great love, in a connection with someone. And in the middle of the loving process of making love, our frequencies can rise so high if we're at that place where we're reaching into our higher self. It is, I believe, how some people can become startled, frightened, maybe, because amazing things can happen, unearthly things. So what happened in my case was, I was so aroused in my entire being that I levitated, and a portal opened. So it's a testimony. I am passionate about love, passion, making love, our awakening, our divinity, and what that means, and what that can bring, and what that can do, and what that can create, and where it can take us. So this did happen. And here I was floating and ready to go into this amazing portal that had opened up. And what happened was, the person that I was with was quite startled by the event and began screaming, and grabbed the Bible and jumped over to the side and was very frightened. That was my confirmation that I indeed was levitating. And these amazing things can happen. So I believe it's a responsibility for how we share our energies, how we are aware of our energies. And it speaks also to the masculine and the feminine. And again, coming back to consciousness and balance and humility, respect, and gratitude for that. We are here to really learn all about the full circumference of the meaning of being love. And this whole lesson is wrapped around the masculine and the feminine. It's wrapped around and all through consciousness to bring us to this place of unity. So I know there was a lot of talk about divine couples and people waiting for their divine counterparts. And well, it's us finding that within ourselves and realizing that great power that will draw that to us. So everyone has that opportunity to find that divine love once they recognize that divine love within themselves and have reached that balance point. And I believe that balance point is something extremely powerful that can elevate us in many ways and connect us on a divine level to Shekinah energy, to Sophia wisdom, to being. It is a passionate and worthy and a worthy attainment to reach into ourselves and to clear everything and not to be afraid, like Simon was saying, and everyone, we have to dispel the fear and know there is nothing to fear because we're only here to do this and be responsible to ourselves and gentle and loving to ourselves and find that balance that can help us hold that space for ourselves as we discover how amazing a space rocket we are. Yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely in the cosmos most of the time, and I like it there. But we're there, and we're anchoring that energy here on Earth to Gaia. Gaia is like Gaia is everything, masculine, feminine. Gaia is a perfect balance because life springs forth from Gaia. So there is a complete working system, and we're connecting to that in ourselves too. It's a beautiful thing. But thank you so much, everyone. I love you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosalind.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosalind. Okay, we're going to finish up with a meditation, Marianna.
Okay. So would
Is
we
that-
like to ask Celestine to do the
Oh, yeah.
meditation for us?
I thought Devi was going to. Okay, what about Devi? Is she doing something?
Well, Devi was going to answer one last question really quick, and that was,
Oh, well,
how
why
is
don't we do that before we go to the meditation then?
Sure. So let's bring on Devi. And the question was, how is the role of the divine feminine and divine masculine playing out in our society today, as everything that has been witnessed so far has been unfolded? So please, Devi, if you can give us a few minutes on that, that would be great.
Well, in order to give a communication to this topic, given what's happening on our planet right now, I'm just going to invite all of our listeners and all of our panelists to synchronize all our dial settings and channels. Because one of the most ancient pieces of the puzzle that we've seen in thousands and thousands of family constellations is the retracing of what is at the causal root core of the symptomology of separation that we're witnessing on every continent and every country right now, as well as the simultaneous benevolent rising of beauty, truth, goodness, and courage and valor to address these ancient systemic, archetypal, and ancestral schisms, for lack of a better word. And in the vulnerability of my deeper transparency that's being inspired because of the nakedness of this panel, what I can add to this compendium is that I too lost my life, right, through very, very advanced, what you would call ritual magic. And it was technically the archetype of the divine father that resurrected me when the dark father right, archetypally took me into that space of perceived separation from source. So when the masculine and feminine energy goes out of balance in any manner, shape, or form, we see a manifestation of loss. Right now on the planet, that could be, the razor's edge between life and death. And the gift of being able to be beckoned or called back into that womb space, the dark, primordial, pregnant, void of all that is to see beyond this illusion of the termination of existence, which is impossible. However, if we just live in the nirvanic rapture of the bliss, then we don't build that muscle or that fortitude as a collective species to go beyond this illusion of death and separation from the divine source wellspring of all that is. And then when I, quote unquote, died the second time, again, advanced ritual magic, way before, right? Egyptian emanations of it. And that was, again, the death ritual of the dark mother and into this mysterious restoration of my being, because my multidimensional consciousness stepped in and allowed me to go into that shape shifting of what was a moment of complete and utter non-existence of my consciousness in the physical plane, right? And in that state of so much surrender, because not only did my human ego not exist anymore, my human body, right? My life stream didn't exist anymore. So it took me into that space of total surrender of like, okay, I've died before, and I came back, I got sent back. And now I find myself in this interesting quagmire where my vessel is being deleted without my quote unquote consent. And so now I know the full spectrum of that which you would call the unconscious feminine, which turns on itself, and the unconscious masculine, where it turns on itself. In the Jungian transpersonal psychology, that's just self-hatred. So this is the symptom of where the human race is being able to surrender any and all, right, programming of self-hatred, where we separated from ourselves in both the male and the female channels. And in this space of the miraculous, great mystery, what has been presenced by every panelist here is this multidimensional metamorphosis, the chrysalis or the cocoon that Marianna and I were discussing. It's not the loss of the caterpillar. It's the imaginal cells of the caterpillar being broken down into substrate, right? Liquid goo. And then the lightning bolt in that dissolution of the caterpillar. And therefore the resurrection of the butterfly. So I would add, right? We had the totem reference of the bird being both a male and a female wing. And there is this code for us in nature, Gaian morphonism. I can't quite pronounce it correctly. Half of the butterfly is the male wing, and half of the butterfly wing is the female. And so that is Gaia and the Green Man basically telling us that if in any moment, if you see the death of the divine masculine principle, in that moment, his multidimensional divine feminine presence can come in and reanimate him from the void. And if in any moment, I mean this on a society level, if you see a death of the divine feminine principle, her multidimensional divine masculine, eternal essence can also resurrect her. It's a safety net, right? Or an alchemical formula of this figure 8 that transcends, right, these conflicts. Because if we look at every country right now, the male and female split, which is the original wound, which was the original murder between the masculine and feminine energy thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. Every country, every nation is playing it out, not intentionally. It's just, the fabric of, let's just take the example of, Ukraine and Russia, or, what's happening in Canada, or what's happening in China. It's a pandemic of just forgetting, right? The sanctity and the all surprising, right? I don't have human words for it. The all resilient, yes, the all resilience of life. And so if we allow ourselves to alchemically invite in any moment where we see the absence of either principle, that there is this multidimensional butterfly medicine as a totem for the human race, to supersede, overcome, and transcend any and all ancient programming of self-hatred. However it played itself out, right? Because that's just the ultimate convincing veil of every version of polarity or duality. That's forgetting to love ourselves. That this interdimensional, transdimensional safety net that will allow this alchemical precipitation to take place if we invite it. So I would invite the collective human species right now to take this opportunity wherever we see an act of violence, wherever we see a breakdown between the masculine and feminine principles, that this original morphogenetic field has the antidote, has the solution pre-existing in the original divine plan. So wherever there's a breakdown, there can always be the breakthrough. And that is the formula that I was given, right? And all of these different death rituals, so that I could come back, right, with this antidote of how do you transmute poison? Wherever the poison has been, where the masculine disconnected from its feminine, or where the poison has been, where the feminine disconnected from its masculine, right? We've had all these messengers speak of the innocence of the divine child. So I invite humanity right now to come back home to the innocence of the divine child that's going to be curious enough to allow this alchemical magic to come in and assist, no matter what seems to be playing itself out on the surface. And that for me would be masculine and feminine, ancestral, archetypal, butterfly metamorphosis for the greater good of the whole. Wow. I didn't imagine that coming out, but there you go.
Thank you. So that's a nice piece. Marianna.
Yes, Alan.
I would love everyone to talk about how to reach them, but should we do the meditation first, or should you want to do that after? Let's do the meditation, then we can come back and everyone could say a final word and how to reach them. But okay, Celestine, you're up.
Okay, here we go. So let's see, maybe, yeah, she's going to spotlight. There we go, I can see. All right, so for everybody, let's just take a moment and take a breath. We have taken in so much today, and let's just breathe that in to the bottom of our feet, and then breathe it back up to the heart. And let us remember all the teachings and the love and the blessings, and let us hold it in our basket and enable us to carry it forward. And for this meditation, which is very spontaneous, I will say the word Aquilius. We're entering the era of Aquilius, which is Latin for balance. So I'd like to offer this meditation in the highest good. May it be a benefit to all sentient beings. May you receive everything you need and more. Akarashkana Theramana Karushkana Teteshe, Brahma Gunamaiskana Taeshe. I surrender my breath to the Great One. And I ask for the guidance for all of humanity at this moment. And they are showing me that it is about the balance within our own selves. So let's take a moment and feel yourself sitting on your chair or lying down. The body is at rest and relaxed. Let us feel ourselves on the earth. And all those who have joined us today, let us connect together in the heart as we open with a deep breath, the I am. I am. Releasing the breath, we are. Let's take another breath, I am. And releasing again, the we are. Another deep breath, deep into the belly, collecting all the energies. And releasing out, we are. And just feeling the we are of this joining together of consciousness that we had today. Expanding it now to all living humans on earth. Be they of one way or the other, they are the creation of the source. They speak a story. Each story is spoken for purpose, functionality. And so we are blessed as a species on earth. We enact a tone. So if you could listen to the tone of humanity as one. You can hear a little bit of distortion in the field, a little bit of fear, doubt. And then we can hear the higher tones of those who are modulating at a higher field of existence. And we can then hear the deeper tones of the great earth grumbling in her caverns, the crystalline tones of the great mother. We have a chord now, a chord that represents our earth. This is our earth that we incarnated in. We are creating her in every second and every moment. Listening to this chord, we want to bring harmony and balance. So we're going to bring a ray of light from the North Star down through the crown of our bodies. I offer and invite you to bring this beautiful golden ray or whatever ray comes down through the crown into the synapses, balancing the energy field. We've been speaking a lot about male and female wounds and such, but let's let this golden ray just come in and bring our thinking, our synapses into harmony. Coming down behind the third eye and down. Where we take a breath into the throat chakra, the shoulders, the arms. Relaxing the arms and relaxing the shoulders. Allowing this golden ray to come down through the back of the spine where the heart is. Down through the spine, the power chakra, the womb, center of male and female, and anchoring in the sacrum. We're bringing heaven to earth as we let it pass through and down through our legs into the earth. Feeling ourselves relaxing more, coming into balance, into the center channel of our beingness, neither here nor there. As it goes down into the crystalline core of the earth, we ask for the codes, your codes, the codes for your life to bring you into balance and harmony, for your path, what you are walking on. We ask the Great Mother, because she carries the codes for our physical body, our emotional well-being. So let's breathe up the Great Mother, the codes that she has given us, the vibration through the channel of the Divine North Star, Keshinama karashkana titishine, kresna te tunai kunukana ishkatuda. Into the heart, breathe it in, and let's all tone together 3 tones of the heart with the sound of ah. And as we do, we're going to expand it into our auric field. Take a breath. Ah. Deep breath again. Feel the love that you have for yourself as we take the last one. Love, truth, harmony, balance, compassion, and joy, the pillars of the divine divinity. Take a deep breath. Feel it go to the edges of your auric field, and there appears a rainbow light. And seal yourself in a rainbow light, rainbow cocoon. As we feel ourselves as this rainbow illuminous embodiment, our energy field within, filled with love of the divine and the mother, it comes together in the heart. And so feeling the love pouring forth, this golden pink light pouring forth from our hearts into the world. It is the healing salve. It is the healing energy. It is the love of your own true self giving forth to the world. Let it flow into those places that you feel need healing, offer it to those who are ill or need assistance, and may they accept it at their own need. Sending it into Ukraine, into the different places, connecting to all of the beautiful power spots, activating them with our love. The earth becomes a love bubble. And here we are suspended in the great Mother Nui, the great sky, the great darkness, as Igor has shown us, and Simon. We speak about being in the darkness. Nui, she holds us in her arms. And the great Christos, the solar one that gives us the information, the data every morning. Let the spiritual light of the sun penetrate the earth's bubble and come into your beingness. May you receive all that you need for your life at this time. May you find that center ridgepole of balance between male, female, love, hate. May you stay in that center ridgepole and find that in that way, the swing is not to the left and the right, but a steady heartbeat of purity, pure consciousness and oneness. Let us take a moment and listen to the sound of the radiance of oneness. We are one. We are one. We are one. Holy art thou, I bow to thee, the Holy Trinity of source, divinity, and humanness. May we bring this species awakened to its illuminated joyousness in the light of the one. Blessed be. Aho. Thank you.
Oh. Blessing. Thank you. Beautiful.
Blessed be.
Blessed be. Ah. So I'd like to say my farewell. I must join my girlfriend who is departing this plane. So what I would say to all of you, thank you, Alan. Thank you, Marianna. Thank you to each and every one of you. And I am so humbly grateful.
How can we find you, Celestine?
You can find me on Galactic Earth Consciousness, or let me just say this, galacticearthcouncil.com, or my name, celestinestar.com.
Thank you. Thank you.
Love you all.
Thank you.
Anything else, Alan?
No, that's good. We're going to just say goodbye, and we're going to put this out to eternity, put it out to the world. Oh, it's already out there. Igor, you want Igor, you want to tell like what did you get from this? Like a quick like kind of overview, snapshot, and how to find you.
So overall, I think this whole group is just a divinely organized, and every single one of us went through our own experiences, and they're all valid. And those that are watching, you don't have to go through the same experience. You have your own path, and it's also valid. And everything that we experience is something that allows us to utilize in our own path of this enlightenment or awakening that we want to call it. And all of them are valid. So the thing is that I want to just say thank you from the bottom of my heart to all these beautiful goddesses out here. And thank you, Simon and Alan, as well, to beautiful gods here. And I think that this needs to be more out there. And I think the next one, maybe we should be holding something about maybe divine sexuality. That would be actually a very interesting one. So, Marianna, thank you. Maybe you can think about that one.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
How can people find you?
IgorGalibov.com or alignmentoflight.com as well.
And Igor's on Instagram. He's always doing stuff on even TikTok and all that. And actually, Igor's going to be at the conference that I'm doing with Celestine in Sedona, March 18th to 20th. So, okay, who else?
Yes.
Melissa? Dr.
Melissa, yes.
All right. So you can find me at sophiahealingacademy.com. You can also find me at somatic-awakening.com. So again, that's Sophia Healing Academy or somatic-awakening.com. And I just want to say, again, thank you so much. This has been incredible. And just to piggyback on what Igor says, we are all divine beings and we all have our own very unique path. So my prayer is that you have picked up the pearls from each one of us that most resonates for you, and that you take this and embody it and run with it in your life. So thank you all, everyone, whether you're watching or whether you're on this panel. It's been a divine experience. So blessings.
Thank you. Beautiful. Okay. How about Debbie? Why don't you just give us a little sum up?
Well, I'm going to echo what Igor said. For me, the next conversation is, right, the sexual. And so I am with all of our presenters and going deeper into these, how do we arouse ourselves, right, with the truth of all creation, addressing everything and anything, right, that's on the palette of the totality of the human experience. And so how you find me in that kind of conversation is the Divine Union Foundation, www.divineunionfoundation.org. And then I put my email in the little box here.
Oh, we just lost you for a second. Oh, yeah.
I just put the little email in the little box.
Oh, in the chat.
Gayatri at divineunionacademy.com. And then you can find me through Speaking Tree of Life on Facebook.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
How about Simon? What about you?
You can find me on my website, simondeacon.com, for a very powerful vortex healing session and intuitive counsel. My intuition goes right now actually to the Ukraine and what's going on right now, the violence. But all right, these past few years have, of course, brought forth an incredible urgency to the incredible shifts of consciousness and the purging of darkness that is going on this planet. Urgency comes to mind. it is the evidence of what we are seeing on this planet. What's going on in Ukraine right now? It's pointing to us. There is an imbalance. There is a representation of imbalance. We must bring our light there. And in this small group, the only way that I know how is to stand in our light and to embody our light. This topic of masculine feminine is one of many ways in which we bring our light into balance. I believe in the ripple effect. I believe as we more embody our light, that light ripples itself out in consciousness. It creates a support that carries us through these dark times. And I'm very blessed that the Vortex Healing Lineage does powerful light work. We get together and we channel our divine healing energies to bring a powerful healing and a shift of consciousness to this planet. It's very powerful, and it's very blessed. And I want to thank all of you for it's an incredible honor to talk, and thank you everyone for sharing. It was truly blessed and sacred. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Simon. Soraya, yes, go ahead.
It's such a pleasure to be in this group. I loved hearing all your stories. And yes, my book is God and the Evolution of Orgasm, because that was a huge part of my journey, was rediscovering. It's not about the original sin, it's about the reconnecting to the original bliss. And so I like this from my journey, from my Kundalini awakening, that original communion with original bliss connected me to my whole body becoming awake, actually sexually, like I say as well. It translated into the physical. That spiritual communion with bliss translated into the physical. So I have a lot to share on that in future, discourse about divinity and sexuality. And my website is just the title of my book, God and the Evolution of Orgasm.
Great. And we're going to be doing some talks together in LA and
We're
around.
going to have a panel of Kundalini awakening people to discuss what that is, because to further this discussion that's so important of the commonalities, so people know that they're not going crazy and what to expect, and also we're all snowflakes and how it is going to be different and individual, and to support people on their journey and inspire them. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks for being here, Soraya. Okay, Roslyn, how would you sum up the evening?
Great. Thank you so much, Soraya and Debbie, Melissa, Marianna, Simon, Igor, and Celestine, and Alan. What an amazing, you never know what to expect when we come together, but most certainly it is a quantifiable experience and co-creation of love that never fails, ever. And we can count on that. Wow. Yes. So in this, wow. Yeah, we definitely have to come back together for that conversation that we're talking about. Definitely. There's so much about that, and our responsibility. That's where it's coming back. Our responsibility to healing the misperception of the sexual energy and what that truly is. And it's really begotten us into a whole a whirlwind, a tunnel. They say the white rabbit, the tunnel. We've really gone down a really painful and distorted tunnel. And I believe these discussions will open that up for us to heal, to change our perception of what this divinity is. And yes, that does include our sexuality. who did come here as a spark, embodied in a body that can feel and communicate and experience all of these things. And we're not supposed to hide that or be ashamed of that. And this is a new learning for us to open up and wash away the false illusions of what we thought we were. Realize that we are divine, radiant, beautiful, passionate creators and gods of God, godlike, within and without. So we're moving in that direction, and we're going to forge ahead and burst out into stardust everywhere. And it should be. Anyone can reach me. Also, I'm still in the process of websiting and all of those things, but you can find me at cosmicutopianrose@gmail.com. You can write me, or you can find me on Facebook. I have Conscious Connective Awareness Gateway. That's a page of mine, and Cosmic Utopian Rose. And all of my informations are there.
Great.
Write me at loveitsweetly.com.
Great.
loveitsweetly@gmail.com. There we go.
Thank you, Rosalind. It must be like 2 a.m. there with you, right? It's like late.
Something like that. Oh,
right.
That's what the last time, just before I spoke, when I looked at my phone, it said 2:22. And I said, how perfect is that? I just glanced, and we're ending, and right after you said we're going to call it, it was 2:22, and I said, well, that's a total blessing. So the angels are with us as usual. Thank you.
Well, I'll go on and let Marianna finish up, but I just want to say thank you, Marianna, for creating this. And Michael Ney, actually, after you finish, I'm going to show a little video of Michael's at the end, just kind of closing credits. But this has been such a full and rich discussion. And, of course, sexuality is a big part. It's what creates the masculine and feminine. It's what creates creation. It is a burst of God and orgasm, isn't it, Soraya? That's creation. And so that might be the next step. We'll talk about it, Marianne. But for this discussion and just the places, the beautiful places people have dropped in, and Melissa, I've never heard your story before, but it was very beautiful. And when someone has that much energy in telling the story, it's true, it's dynamic, it's energizing, and it's a transmission. It's a transmission. That's what I felt around Soraya when she was activating her Kundalini. It was like, wow, there's something going on there. But all of us have that light. When you look in people's eye, and I saw that with everyone here, the light. And I think if we can just see that in everyone, we wouldn't have to invade countries. We wouldn't have to do all that. See like the light in everyone. That's enough. That's enough. That is the completion of the wound in a way. We talked about the wound. Seeing that light is the healing of the wound. And thank you, everyone, for the active chat on YouTube. I appreciate all the regulars, and subscribe to this channel if you're watching. Take out a super chat, but subscribe, and then we can build a real community out of this. So thank you, Marianna, for creating a beautiful evening for everyone here and watching. Alan Steinfeld.
Thank you, everybody.
Marianna,
Good night.
what do you say, Marianna?
Thank you, Alan. It's always a pleasure to share the platform with you. And it really is. And it's heartfelt and heart-touching to share the platform with all of you that have joined us today. Thank you so much, Celestine. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Igor. Thank you, Simon. Simon's a close friend of mine from New York. Thank you so much to Debbie. Thank you, Rosalind, joining us live from Israel. Thank you to everyone watching. Thank you to everyone that will be watching in the future. I'm actually from Ukraine myself, so it is quite touching right now to watch my birth town actually being taken, but I feel that the divine feminine and the divine masculine and the role that it's playing out right now, and as we have more of the light source coming through into the soil, I feel that this is the continuous reawakening process and the evolutionary process that we're all going through with the ascension. And so it is showing me, actually, speaking of that, the ability that I am taking the opportunity now not to get involved and caught up in this trauma as I'm seeing my birth city going through everything. I'm actually taking this opportunity to see the light in the darkness. And I am treading through the waters of darkness right now at the moment, going to my inner child, healing my childhood wounds from Chernobyl, healing childhood wounds from the Cold War in the 1980s, and being able to come out as a more whole, more togetherness within my divine feminine, divine masculine, more equal, and bring more balance into my being. And that is what I wish for the entire humanity as a whole at this time, that we are all able to go into a process, that chrysalis, that metamorphosis, that morphogenetic field be filled with that ability to achieve the balance in the totality of the entirety of our being together as one, not only within the human collective consciousness, as I always say, but throughout the whole galactic spectrum. And so that is what I wish for all of us, to feel peace, to feel love, that unconditional love, which is the greatest force in the universe. And like Alan said, absolutely, if we can see the light in everyone, we wouldn't have wars. And if we feel in record numbers as people are truly awakening, we are exemplifying the expression of source, and we are being more seen and more heard. And by that, we are creating more peace on this planet. So thank you, Alan, so much. And thank you for everyone who joined us today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to share this video and then we'll just end it. But this is from the one of the producers here helped create this, Michael Ney. And this is his little ending video for all of us to just take in these images. Integrating love and love.